What? What's wrong? Oh, I see, this circle around here. Yeah, that's weird. That's what happens when you use an APS-C lens on a full frame body like I'm doing right now. It becomes completely useless, right? Actually, in today's video, we're gonna see why this might make sense for some photographers and how using APS-C lenses on full frame bodies might allow us to create things that we couldn't create otherwise. Alright, this is much better. Welcome everybody. I'm Adrian, I'm a photographer and I specialize in black and white square images. And that last part, square images, is the key for why APS-C lenses might make sense on full frame bodies. But let's start from the beginning. I shot that intro using the A7R II with the excellent Sigma 16mm f1.4. As you could see, the problem is that it was creating a lot of vignetting on the sides, and that's because this lens was designed and made for APS-C bodies. Here on this side is an APS-C sensor, here on this other side is a full frame sensor. You already knew this, but a full frame sensor is bigger than an APS-C sensor. An APS-C lens like this one is designed to cover an APS-C sensor, so the image, the circle that it creates here on the back is of that size, the appropriate size for the APS-C sensor. That's why when we mount it on a full frame camera, that circle that creates on the back is not enough to cover the whole sensor, so we get that very strong vignette. And that's one of the reasons why full frame lenses like this one are bigger and usually more expensive. Now, not all APS-C lenses are created equal. There are some lenses out there that for whatever reason cover more than the APS-C sensor that they are supposed to cover. Most lenses though will behave like the 16mm, creating a very strong vignette on the sides, so you'll have to get rid of that on your images. You'll have to do some heavy cropping. That is a deal breaker for every photographer. Almost every photographer. If you are like me and most of your work is in square, you are already used to cropping, to heavily cropping your images to square. We are getting rid of the sides anyway, no matter what lens and camera we are using. So all of a sudden, these lenses become a viable option to create images. Now, that being said, I prefer to use proper full frame lenses on full frame bodies. That's why I have a couple, because I like to have that spare room on the sides just in case I want to reframe my image a little bit, or maybe I see a crop that I didn't see when I took the picture, or maybe I want to create a panorama or whatever it is. The thing is, when we pair this lens with an APS-C camera, it behaves like a 24mm f2.1 lens, more or less, due to the crop. In reality, this lens is a 16mm lens and it has an aperture of 1.4. So when you mount it on a full frame body like this one, it will give you the perspective, the field of view of a 16mm lens and the very shallow depth of field of a 1.4 aperture. And that is the exact reason why you might want to use a combination like this, because last time I checked, there were no full frame lenses out there that could match the performance of this one. I think the closest is the Sigma 14mm 1.8, and still it comes at almost twice the weight and more than 4 times the price. You might have noticed that I used this lens on my previous video. I made this image with this lens and I absolutely love the way it blurs the background while still keeping an extremely wide angle. This is not the only APS-C lens I've tried on the A7R II. These are some more examples. The one that I was really hoping it would work was the size 16 to 70mm f4. I love that lens for my APS-C camera, but 16 to 70 on full frame, that would be an extremely useful range. It could be like the combination of a 16 to 35 and a 24 to 70 lens. But unfortunately, it didn't really work. It had really thick frames on all the sides, and you would have to crop the image so much that you'd be better off just using it on APS-C. One that works pretty well though is this one, the Sony 70 to 350. It covers almost the whole sensor, but the thing is that this one is pretty close in size and price to the full frame version 70 to 300. So unless you don't have it already, it makes very little sense to get a lens like this one to use on your full frame body. Another one that works pretty well is this Sigma 56mm 1.4. It's a tiny, super compact lens, and when mounted on the A7R II, it works as a nifty 50 with a very fast aperture, very good autofocus. The downside of this lens is that it distorts quite a bit, so depending on the subject or depending on the scene that you are photographing, it might not work at all. But if it works, it creates beautiful images. There you have it. Using APS-C lenses on full frame bodies is not for everyone, but if you happen to have a few lenses around a full frame body, it might be worth a try because they could be very useful for some situations. I hope this video was helpful and useful. If that was the case, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.